The story of Shenmue began 20 years ago, and for its time, the original game was an undeniable marvel in video game storytelling and world building. But time has not been kind to Shenmue or its 2001 sequel because video game stories and performance capture tech have improved drastically. In many ways, Shenmue 3 is a stark reminder of the leaps and bounds developers have made in the last 20 years. That's not to say there isn't a compelling experience here that is an improvement over the first two games in nearly every way, it just feels out of time and doesn't reward the Shenmue faithful with meaningful revelations in the story. Shenmue 3's overall look represents a huge improvement, with the picturesque countryside of Bailu Village standing out in particular. That said, character movement is stiff and their designs are inconsistent, with some folks looking realistic and others looking like cartoon characters. That's pretty standard for Shenmue, to be fair. All of that is good news for committed players who love the series and have eagerly been waiting to see what happens next, but there is no denying Shenmue 3 feels like it should have come out in the mid-2000s. The starting town, Bailu, is the more interesting of the two areas you explore, which you do as you quickly get down to business asking literally everyone for information about your mission. The voice acting for all these conversations is bad across the board, and every character you meet is generally shallow and one-note.
Can I help you?
But while the performances and writing may be lacking, being able to have a conversation about your immediate goal with nearly everyone is an accomplishment. That thorough amount of dialogue was a feat 20 years ago, and it's one of the few things that's still impressive today. It makes the world feel more alive and real. That said, talking to everyone can be tedious because it's mostly unskippable, and the way you make your way down checklists is frustrating. You also spend too much time driving a forklift and gambling after hours to make money to buy things that open up training opportunities, only to be led to more traipsing across the city. Shenmue 3 is less about figuring out what you need to do next and more about asking people where poorly labeled landmarks are located so you can talk to the important people who are standing there waiting for you. The combat is all hand-to-hand against various thugs, and it is challenging, but not in fun or rewarding ways. The detailed combos of the first two games have been abandoned, which is a big improvement. Instead of memorizing button inputs for specific moves and then spamming them in an abandoned parking lot by yourself to improve them, now you can spar with other people to level up those moves and map them to a hotkey. But even with these improvements, enjoying the combat can still be a struggle because the enemies constantly block. The crucial training you need to do to increase your health is also boring. You perform mini-games like maintaining a squat stance or walking around in a circle over and over for small boosts. You do them a lot because the bonus health is valuable, but it's not exactly a great time. When you're not throwing out punches and kicks, you're in QTEs. Shenmue 3 executes on the basic premise of letting you participate in well-choreographed chase sequences and cinematic sparring, but there's basically no punishment for failure. You can easily memorize the sequence after a few tries, at which point all intensity and danger is lost. At a certain point, just watching a cutscene would be preferable. The plot is arguably the main draw of Shenmue 3, and that's why it's so sad that after waiting for 2 decades, the story doesn't feel any closer to a conclusion by the time the credits roll after around 40 hours. Much of the story and dialogue feels inconsequential and unrelated to the larger conflict until the final moments. At that point, it delivers an eye-rolling, completely unearned final act twist before the climactic confrontation. Without spoiling anything, let's just say it takes a frustrating shuffle backwards as opposed to the large step forward fans have been waiting for. Even with low expectations for resolution, they likely won't be met.
The Golden Goose? I am. What of it?
Shenmue 3 feels like it's from a different era, a step forward from its ambitious action-adventure predecessors, but still about 5 steps behind modern games. This direct continuation of Shenmue 2's story and gameplay feels like coming home for those who had all but given up hope of ever returning to Ryu Hazuki's world, and for that reason, it's a good thing that Shenmue 3, in all its oddity, exists. It just lacks the satisfying story many were eagerly waiting for. For more on Shenmue 3, check out the first 22 minutes of gameplay, and for everything else, stick with IGN.